I now call this regular meeting of Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Oh. For the record, Director Barnes is participating by Zoom tonight, so you'll hear his voice coming out of the ceiling. Director Hayes, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
Yes, I'll be happy to. The mission statement. Davenport Community School District is dedicated to growing excellence in academics, the arts, and athletics for every child by ensuring the highest quality of education in an environment shaped by our diverse community, preparing our students to be lifelong learners and productive citizens. The vision statement. Education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you, Director Hayes. Director Kleindrome, would you please read the guiding principles?
Opportunity. We provide abundant opportunities to empower students to reach their full potential academically, creatively, and socially. Collaboration. We foster an environment that allows students, families, and community stakeholders to come together for the betterment of our students' education and future. Transparency. We share relevant and important information with our students, families, and the community to maintain open and productive communication.
Thank you, Director Kleindrome. Superintendent Schneckhoff, would you please read the goals?
Goal number 4, foster the innovative use of finances, facilities, and staff.
Thank you, Superintendent. We'll now move on to the public hearing. I will now conduct a public hearing on the plans and specifications for the West High School sawdust collector replacement project as shown in the 95% plans and specifications. Notice of the hearing was published in the Quad City Times on August 24, 2023. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone or call 1-312-626-6799 and enter meeting ID 99517860153 and passcode 763993. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Poston.
move the board approve the plans and specifications for the West High School Esser Sawdust Collector Replacement Project as shown in the 95% plans and specifications.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. We'll move on to, there are no recognitions tonight, so we'll move on to presentation. We have subject 4.01, PMF Financial. Susan Gerlach?
That's right.
Boom.
Well done. We are very lucky to have Suzanne with us here today, all the way from Des Moines. So thank you so much for making the trip down. Before we get started, I've asked Kevin to kind of talk to what has led us up to this point in time. And really, then it's Suzanne's job to kind of talk to us, what's the future look like for us? It's been quite the process for us to get to this spot, but I'm very excited about what lays ahead of us. So, Kevin, I'll turn it over to you to kind of talk to us about where we've been, and then it'll be Suzanne's job to get us to where we're going. So thank you again so much for coming down. Thanks, Kevin.
This is really kind of an exciting night because we've been working on this for quite a long time. So I'm going to take everyone back a little bit. If you remember, about 2 years ago, we started our master facility plan. Working through that, we knew what was going to happen financially, but also remember we passed a revenue purpose statement just over a year ago. That led us to tonight because we were able to extend our sales tax revenues from 2029 to 2050, which opened up some avenues for us to have some funding. If you remember also, last month, we talked about where our fund balances were, both in PEPL and SAVE, and we have a healthy fund balance. So what we're planning is more of a balanced approach between spending some cash that we have on hand from PEPL and SAVE dollars, as well as borrowing sales tax revenue in the future. And that is what Suzanne's going to talk to us about. I just want to caution everyone what bonding means. When we talk bonding seems like an ominous word, but what we're really talking about is borrowing against sales tax dollars. We are not going to a referendum. We are not asking for property taxes. This is strictly sales tax revenues into the future that we're talking about. And Suzanne is here with us. She's a managing partner with PFM Financial. She's going to lead us through a cadence of how we will be funding phase one projects, which is directly from the master facility plan and working with Bray Architects. So this is kind of the evening where everything kind of comes together financially, and she's going to lead us through that exercise.
Thank you, Kevin. Very excited to be here again. Been running numbers for these projects for a long time, so now this is where we get to start making some decisions and move forward. So first, we're going to go through the proposed plan of finance. What that means is what projects are going to get funded, what the borrowing amounts look like, what the timeline looks like, and get us all the way through to fully funding phase one projects. So we're going to start with an overview of the bonds, right? So the proposed plan of finance, there are $157 million of projects. This includes the demolition of the 2 elementary schools. It would be $7.5 million for various elementary school improvements, turf for high school athletic fields, a new Sedlow Middle School, a new Smart Middle School, and then $20 million for North High School improvements. Now, each one of these projects has their own timeline. We're coordinating, we have a big project team, obviously, with Bray Architect, getting the timeline for construction, matching when to borrow to when you need to spend the money, right? As we know, today's interest rate environments aren't fantastic, so being mindful of getting the best, lowest cost of capital to get all of these projects done, but still meeting the timelines for bidding and construction and getting funding in your hands before you get those invoices and proceed. So, as Kevin mentioned, we're recommending a combination of cash on hand from the SAVE fund. Those are sales tax dollars that are sitting in available fund balance, as well as doing 2 series of bonds to borrow. And when we say bonds, they're municipal bonds. They're issued as federally tax-exempt bonds that are purchased by investors and large retail customers. And they fund your capital projects, and then they're paid back over time. So we'll go through what those bonds look like, the important details around each of those bonds, but it would be $8,149,000 of cash-funded projects. The school building demolition, probably looking at PEPL funds on hand. And then the elementary school projects, because those are going to happen over time as needed, those make sense not to borrow necessarily, but to use your ongoing surpluses and cash balances out of the SAVE fund. Looking at the turf for the high school athletic fields and the new Sedlow Middle School, PFM is recommending we borrow for both of those projects in the first borrowing. That would be $74 million, $74.7 million in the first project fund borrowing. And then we could come back with a second round of borrowing once we've bid the new Smart Middle School building, taking care of any change orders. You know, when you go through construction, it's not necessarily set even when you get the bid. And then we can account for the timing, how things have progressed. Things happen. Sometimes things move up. Sometimes things get delayed. So that allows us to come back with a second borrowing in sometime in, I'm assuming, fall of 2025 to get funding in place for the remainder of the phase one projects. And so this schedule really tries to build maximum flexibility with both the amounts we can borrow. If something's going to cost more, we can increase the second borrowing. Timing, if something gets delayed, we can wait. In an interest rate environment where we're not at all-time lows anymore, don't probably want to lock in the whole 154 million right now because we can't refund those bonds for 8 years. We live with that interest rate for 8 years, and then after that we can refund them sooner if interest rates do go down in the future. And it's my job to watch that for you. So looking at the 2024 SAVE revenue bonds, I estimate the par amount, right? Because the project fund is one piece of it, but then you have to pay your attorney, you have to pay me as your municipal advisor, you have to pay to get a credit rating, and then you're gonna have to pay what's called underwriter's discount. When we issue bonds, it's an underwriter banking firm that will buy them and then sell the bonds to their customers. And we have to pay interest for them to do that, or underwriter's discount, and then we pay the interest rate to the bondholders. So we're going to be funding $74.7 million of projects, and I estimate the total principal amount to be borrowed at $75.8 million. And so estimating the delivery date of March 28th, 2024. And right now, I'm pretty conservative. If you're going to hear me say this again and again, I'd rather be a little too high and have things come in better than to plan for something where we are today and then things are more expensive tomorrow. So I'm using a very conservative interest rate of 5.14%. And these bonds will be repaid over 20 years. Unlike a mortgage, you get one interest rate for the whole loan, right? Well, for municipal bonds, every single principal payment in every year that you make gets its own interest rate. So they're sold as individual pieces, if you will, and then it's repaid over time. So we're going to be paying back the 24 bonds starting June 1st of 2025, and those will be paid off in June 1st of 2043. Now, I estimate the average annual principal payments on these bonds, principal and interest, to be $6,280,000. So borrowing $75.8 million, we're going to be repaying roughly $6.28 million per year. And over the cost of that 20-year term, that's that number that's always a little like, whoa, $119 million for principal and interest over the life of a 20-year loan. So much like your mortgage, you borrow $300,000 for a house, you don't pay back $300,000, you pay something more with the interest over the life of a mortgage. Any questions so far? Yeah.
I was just wondering, I know not everybody is familiar with what PEPL and SAVE are. If you could just define those real
You
quick.
bet.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so PEPL is property, property, plant, and equipment levy. So there is a voted levy of the district and a board-approved levy that those can only be used for property, plant, and equipment. So repair and maintenance, land purchase, all those kind of things. But that is, it's in the budget every year. Those are funds available for capital improvements ongoing. And then SAVE stands for School Advanced Vision for Education, which is that statewide penny. Everybody pays that 1 penny sales tax and it goes into the statewide pot. And then the state distributes that money on a per pupil basis statewide to all schools. And that can only be used for capital, can't be used for operations.
The other part of that too is we were waiting for our count to come official in the middle of October because that's a variable that we need to know. Suzanne needed to have that to be able to put in her models so we knew where our enrollment was because there's a state average per pupil for sales tax that's given to every school district in the state. So once we had that, we were kind of we're ready to go and we're ready to plan this. So that's why you're seeing it tonight as opposed to last month or prior to October 15th.
Looking at the 25 bonds, again, I'm assuming we'll come back maybe September of 2025, looking at the construction schedule. And I was just visiting with a gentleman from Bray Architect about, he's going to send me the monthly draw schedule so we can match even more closely for the timing. But estimating it'd probably be September before you've spent enough of the bond proceeds from the 24 bonds to merit coming back to the market, making sure that we don't run out before we start this new SMART middle school. We'll have bids in hand by this time. SMART will be bid. We'll know exactly how much that's going to cost. We don't want to overborrow. We don't want to underborrow. It takes a lot of time and effort and expenses to borrow every time we do. So really being mindful of what makes the most sense to group the projects together. And again, using the same 5.14% interest. Rates go up, rates go down. I've been doing this for over 17 years. I've seen 1% interest, and now we're seeing over 5% interest. So, you know, again, those bonds will be repaid over 20 years. The other nice thing about waiting and borrowing this second series is now we have till 2045 to pay these bonds back. So it just gives us a little bit longer period of time that we're not overlapping, and we can pay the bonds back over and still be in that 20-year window. Because we get an extra year, we're borrowing in the fall, we're not borrowing in the spring, we do get an extra principal payment for the 20 years, and so a little bit lower average annual debt service on this of $6,050,000 of average principal and interest. I do structure just how I look at it. I'm trying to give you sort of a level principal and interest payment. It's not exactly the same every month like a mortgage would be, because it is different what you're paying in principal every single year, but I do try to be mindful and get as close as we can as sort of a set number of payments. So now for budgeting, we know what the constraint is every year. And so again, $120 million over time. The timing of this issuance can be adjusted, and the principal amount can be adjusted. These are just PFM's preliminary numbers. Now, those are specifics about the bonds. Now, obviously, there's a lot of assumptions that go into that. We are assuming declining enrollment in the future, maybe settling around 11,000 students, just to be conservative. We have very modest growth in that statewide funding per pupil, just to be conservative, make sure we have enough. But I do at this time project that there's going to be more than enough. You're still going to have annual surpluses even after you pay for the debt service and all of the the other projects, that are scheduled. We have millions of dollars for technology, for instructional support, and then also ongoing capital projects that are just pay-go. So all of that is taken into account, and the bonds, and I'm still estimating we're going to have $1 million surpluses in the cash flow each year, which, I know makes Kevin happy. Flexibility. Okay, so now that that's sort of the bonds themselves, now we're going to talk about the process. What does it look like to go through the bonding process? It's been 2015 since PFM worked with the district to do the last SAVE issuance. And those bonds are actually going to be paid in full June 1st of 2024. So hello, good to see you again. Glad to be back. And very excited to be doing projects. So since we issued bonds in 2015 together, the rules of the game have changed. The laws have changed, the public hearing requirements. There didn't used to be a public hearing requirement if you had your revenue purpose statement, but now it does require a reverse referendum public hearing to issue SAVE revenue bonds. And so that's a 2-meeting process for the school board. At meeting number 1, the district will take action to set a public hearing for a future date and time, just like any other public hearing. And you're required to publish a similar notice to any other kind of public hearing. Only this one has to be at least 10 days and no more than 20 days before you hold the hearing. And it must be published in a newspaper having general circulation. And in this case, the voters have the right to create and submit a valid petition to the district. So, and that petition would mean that they want the bonds to go on a ballot, right? So the petition. And then meeting number 2 would be holding that public hearing. That was held at least 10 days, but no more than 20 days after that notice of publication. So also, in addition to issuing SAVE revenue bonds, any athletic facility projects that are not education-based, the turf projects in this case would fall under athletic projects. Those projects require a public hearing that is subject to reverse referendum as well. That's very different. That's a new thing, and it's very... So that doesn't matter if you're borrowing for the project or if you're using your SAVE cash for the project. If those SAVE dollars are spent on an athletic facility project, the project is required to be subject to that reverse referendum public hearing. And so the schedule that I'm going to show you will assume that we're going to set and hold 2 public hearings. One for the issuance of future SAVE revenue bonds to save time and to save expenses. I'm going to recommend we hold one large hearing for the future issuance of all of the bonds. That's allowable, and then we can issue them over time. It gives you sort of a not to exceed amount for all of the debt you can sell in the future. And so I'm recommending we do one public hearing for all of the SAVE revenue bonds, both the 24 and the 25 that I'm proposing. And then there'll be one one public hearing specifically for the athletic facility turf project. So there will be 2. And again, the reverse referendum means that the voters have the right to petition the school board asking for an election on the issuance of SAVE revenue bonds or the athletic facility project. Now, a petition must be created by an eligible voter, signed by at least 10% of the voters who voted in the last school board election, and it must be filed to the board no later than the date of the public hearing. So it's like other petitions that the board may receive. So there are 5 school board meetings that are required to walk through the full process of issuing revenue bonds, SAVE revenue bonds. And so I've walked through just specifically the school board meeting actions that will be necessary to walk through all the steps. And I've actually put a proposed timeline in here for your consideration tonight. School board number 1, I'm proposing would take place on November 13th, 2023 to set the public hearing and approve that publication that will go to the newspaper for both the SAVE revenue bonds and the athletic facility project. At school board meeting number 2, I propose that would be held December 11th. That gives us plenty of time for publication. If there's an oopsie, it gives us another week for publication, and still meets that 10 and 20 guideline. And then that means that on December 11th, we would hold the public hearing for both the issuance of SAVE revenue bonds and hold the public hearing for the athletic facility project. And you would receive any petitions that night if there are any. Now, assuming there is no petition received, we continue on to school board meeting number 3. Now, I have built in a tremendous amount of cushion. As you can see, it's going to be the holidays. I don't know about you, but I would have peace of mind knowing that it's all settled and done before we go on break for the holiday, and then come back in January and then work through the other parts of the bond sale process. This would mean the next time that you would have action to take would be February 12th is the date I'm proposing. At this meeting, you would approve what's called a preliminary official statement. That is the marketing document that PFM helps scribe that lists the terms of the bonds, lists the principal amounts you're going to pay, the schedule of when you're going to pay it back. It lists all kinds of important information about the district to potential investors, the people that are going to buy your bonds. And it has all of the really fun legal information that must be in there as well, that we work with Allers to make sure that both of us are putting all those pieces and parts together in that preliminary official statement. PFM serves as the scribe, but that is truly an issuer document. That is a document, a binding document of the district, and so we do ask you to authorize it. You look at it, read it, flip through it. You don't have to understand everything it means, but if there's anything in there that is factually inaccurate or misleading to an investor, there are securities laws violations at stake, and so it's very important that it is factual and accurate. And then also at that meeting, you'll be approving the electronic bidding process, or the internet bid system, we call it. PFM recommends a competitive sale at this time based on market environments. And what that means is we put the bonds out there and receive bids from every underwriter in the US that is interested to submit a bid and buy the bonds. And in order to do that, we use a reverse auction internet bid site. It is free for the district, but the underwriters have to pay to use it. And it's a very common platform. We use it for all of our competitive sales in Iowa. It's very familiar. But anyway, it requires your authority because you would be electronically signing when we put things out there. And so we would need your approval to use that internet bid platform. Again, it is free to the district, and it is the platform that we recommend. It's a reverse auction site. So the day that we take bids, we can pull it up on the internet. We can all sit in a room and we can watch and we can refresh as people submit bids. It's a blind auction. So what that means is when an investor submits a bid, if they can see if they're winning or if they're not winning. And if they're not winning, they can see that they're in number 2, 3, or 4, and then they can pull their bid, sharpen their pencil, give us a better bid if they really want to win, and resubmit until the bid deadline. And so we like it because it does allow for resubmission. And so that's the website that we use. Now, my favorite day is bond sale day, right? That's what we live and breathe for, is bond sale day. And so that is, we're recommending February 26th, 2024. I will be here at 10 a.m. to sit somewhere and watch on the internet with you all, whoever would like to come. We will be watching those internet bids come in, And then at that time, at 10 o'clock, PFM will verify those bids are correct. We will double check everything. And once we know we have a winning bidder, we have to do a verbal award. Now, you will come back that night, and I will be here at your school board meeting that night to present the results of the sale, to talk about where the market was that day, how many bidders did we get, what were the results, good, bad, indifferent, give you my opinion of where things are, and I will make a formal recommendation on a formal award. Now, my award will be I'm going to recommend whoever we verbally awarded to at 10 a.m., but that's why we need your permission, because we are making a verbal award on your behalf. And then we'll come back and there'll be legal documents, resolutions to authorize. There'll be 2 legal documents that night. One to say that we were present when we opened bids and received the results, and the second to formally award by resolution to the winning bidder. And then there will be one more school board meeting where your board secretary will probably and probably board president will need to stretch their hands for all of the documents they get to sign, all the legal documents. That's where you get all of the legal documents from allers with the issuance proceedings. There'll be legal opinions, there'll be tax exemption certificates, there'll be authorizing resolutions, there'll be continued disclosure certificate, and all the different legal documents that will need to be put in place to close the bonds and get the school district the bond proceeds. So 5 board meetings in all. Now, there are other activities that go along with the bond sale, and so I thought it was important to just lay them all out. So again, recommending we start November 13th to set those public hearings and approve the notices that will be published. Work on publication to hold the public hearing on December 11th. That will be 2 public hearings for both the issuance of save revenue bonds and for the athletic facilities turf project. I am estimating that Kevin and I will be doing the rating call with Standard & Poor's in January. I'm estimating the week of January 31st. We need to give Standard & Poor's time to do their credit rating process and get us back a report so we can publish the rating of the district in that official statement. That's a very important part of the information that goes in that official statement. Standard & Poor's is one of 3 different options. There's 4 options, but there's really 3 major options. And really in Iowa, there's 2 options that are the most common. It'd be Moody's Investor Service and Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's rates, I would say, probably 85 to 90% of the save revenue bonds issued in the state of Iowa, and they're very familiar with the statewide credit. So that's who your current rating is with, and so it is a little bit more time-effective, cost-effective to stay with the same rating agency and not have to maintain 2 ratings for the district. So PFM will help prepare a credit presentation for that, and so we'll be relying on staff to help us prepare all the information. It's going to be a lot of the same things that are going to be in the official statement, and we'll prepare a PowerPoint presentation that answers all of the questions that Standard & Poor's is going to have. PFM obviously does this a lot. We know exactly the questions that they're going to ask, and so rather than just letting them pepper questions, we like the proactive approach where we put the district forward, put our best foot forward, know exactly the information that we're presenting, and then and as we're doing the analysis, if there's anything, any risks or anything that we want to have a conversation about, we lead the dialogue versus reacting to the dialogue, which I think is always going to put the district in a better light. And then at the February 12th meeting, that's school board meeting number 3, that's where you're approving that preliminary official statement. We'll have the rating back in time to get that in the preliminary official statement. And then it will be school board meeting number 4 on February 26th to receive and open the bids and then award the bonds to the winning bidder. And then school board meeting number 5, which is where you'll authorize all of those issuance proceedings that come from allers. And then March 28th is when the money comes. The money gets deposited by wire into the district's bank, and you can start spending money immediately. On March 28th, it'll be there. The bonds have to be closed by noon, so bond proceeds are usually wired out first thing in the morning, and closing is done electronically through by noon. So other than that, I did also list the other tasks for district staff. It'll be December and January when PFM is working on that official statement. We serve as your scribes. We prepare the terms of offering since we're the one that crafted the terms of the bonds. And then we provide the bid form, we provide all the information, but we rely quite a bit of information we're going to get from the district. Also, same time, we'll be working on that Standard & Poor's credit rating presentation. And then staff will need to participate in the S&P rating call. And then the morning of the bond sale, I'm going to be looking to Kevin to make that preliminary award on parity. We'll have to make that preliminary verbal award saying, yes, you're the winning bidder, and then it relies on your formal action. The underwriters cannot start selling those bonds until I send them the time that you authorized the resolution. And they will be emailing me by 7 a.m. if they haven't heard from me, wanting to know what time the bonds were formally awarded. And this schedule does get the district the bond proceeds before construction is anticipated to begin in April of 2024 for the turf. That is the first project up, is the high school turf projects, and that's anticipated to begin in April of 2024, and we got you bond proceeds March 28th, so just in time for you to begin construction on your first project. So any other questions? Anything you want me to go back to and look at? Any other questions in the process? Any thoughts on starting in November?
I don't have a question, but just a comment.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're looking at this, just in round figures, we're talking about a $75 million loan, and it's going to take $119 million to service that debt. So we're looking at $45 million, basically interest that we'll be paying on that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So when you look at that, you think, wow, $45 million we're paying on interest in this project. But if I did my math right, divided over 20 years and 13,000 students, that comes out to about $170 per student, which makes that feel a little bit better than when you just look at the large figure of $45 million in interest. So
It's a good comment. And, and I would challenge you to go look at your mortgage statement. And especially when mortgage rates are 8% right now. It's sometimes shocking to look at those numbers, but yes, that's a good way to look at it.
You'll also pay a lot more in inflation with what was 5 years ago that was $2 million to build, might be double that, 1.5 times that. So you'll spend a lot more pay as you go and going super slow than you will to borrow and finance over 20 years.
Director Potts.
What is our annual average save revenue?
That is a good question. The district receives in fiscal 24, we are budgeting $17.5 million in revenues. So we're talking about $6 million and $6 million. So roughly 12.5 of that would go to debt service. But even after we're reserving just around $2 million for other pay-as-you-go capital needs, $2.5 million ongoing, $2 million for technology, and then we have instructional support, staffing, things like that, around $2.5 million. So we're still reserving, was that $2, $4, $6, $7 million for other ongoing needs on top of the debt service that are and still having a surplus.
Okay, if I add up the debt service, it's about $12,330,000 a year, and the save is 17.5.
And you're also earning interest on your cash of 5.3%. And so your interest earnings are generating $4 million a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah. So that, yeah.
because I
So
was-
yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was asking,
Yes.
If
yes.
we're paying out this much, if we're taking in this much,
So that's it.
where's that other money coming from?
So that's a good point, because there is, and full disclosure, you have $48 million in cash, right? Well, that cash has never been more valuable. You're earning 5.3%, and we're borrowing at 5.14%, right? So to me, let's save the cash. Well, it's valuable because if rates go down, you're not going to earn any money in your cash then. So that's the time to spend your cash. So that's a little bit of a war chest. That's $4 million. And that's honestly offsetting your enrollment declines, because I'm not assuming much growth in the statewide average. So that cash is really valuable to let it work for you.
Okay, that was very important information to
Yes.
share.
Yes. Yes.
Director Barnes, did you have any questions?
I do not at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank Thank you for the mind-blowing presentation.
My pleasure.
What did you think I was saying? Yeah. Oh, knocked it out of the park. Great job. Good job.
Thank you.
Hope you had an over-under on that. Got it in there. All right, we will move on to student board reports. We'll start at this end with Nye.
I wanted to let you know my name's pronounced Nee. Yeah. Simple mistake. It happens. Okay. Homecoming was about 2 weeks ago on Saturday. This year we had the building in Mississippi Valley Fair instead of the Adler Theater. It was super spacious, and they kept one of the garage doors open to keep cool air. We also had Devil Dollars this year being presented to homecoming tickets instead of using $20. So if kids didn't want to use or they didn't have the ability to use actual money, they were welcome to use Devil Dollars, which were earned from teachers to students by using and showing grit. And I've seen the trend where kids are showing how much Devil Dollars they get in one day. I've seen a kid get about 20 already, which is pretty impressive. It's a big motivation for students, and I see it really growing on them every single day, so it's really good to see. Along with Central, there's 15 vocalists that were accepted to All-State Choir, and 5 of them have gotten to All-State Band. Along with State, 2 kids were accepted and qualified for Cross Country. Also, the Drama Club is playing Ordinary Days, and it's happening this Saturday at 7 p.m. Tickets are sold, I think, after school, and I'm going. I'm super excited. There's also Gray Matters Chapter. It's a student-based club that's kicking off this Friday at 3:30 after school, where students are welcome to come in I think it's the PAC this time, and I'm super aware that the goals for them is to spread awareness on mental health concerns, students empowering other students with safety and social levels, and see how they can be proactive and solve them within the school. Also, today, I've also seen a lot of teachers were given the gray, black tees with the Davenport school logo, and it also had the Davenport Community Schools that was printed in white. I saw a lot of the teachers smiling, and they're holding it up. They're like, "Look what I got today." And I was like, "Really? That makes you guys super happy?" And they were like, "It's real nice." I saw so much passion, and my welding teacher was also like, he was showing it, and he was like, "Look at this, guys. This is what I get," and I'm super happy about it. And I think it really made a lot of us motivated to go to school that day because so many teachers were so happy about it. That's all I got. Thank you.
My name is Elena Pumivong, and I'm one of the senior student representatives for Davenport North High School. My colleague will be giving the student report for both our school and our 2 feeder schools.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Cepeda of Davenport North High School, and I will be giving the North Student Report. Yeah. Sorry. As for last week, okay. Sorry. As for last week, our band participated on October 14th all day at Brady Street Stadium for the Iowa High School Marching Association State Marching Band Festival in a college-style march titled Rise Up, meant to spread positive sentiments around the district. Additionally, this weekend, several of our Wildcats tried out for the all-state performance, and our school's student conductor and flutist, Morgan Smith, qualified for the 2023 All-State Band along with 3 of our choir members, Reese Rewerts, Carter Owens, and Novalee McLaughlin. Students Melania Jimenez and Cameron Freeman also qualified for the 37th Annual Opus Festival. So I would like to congratulate these students for their recognition on the state level in their musical endeavors. Additionally, after seeing the participation from Homecoming Week's Spirit Week, we decided to implement a Spirit Week for our student hunger drive and themed certain days off of it. On Monday, we had Superhero Spirit Week Day. On Tuesday, it was Twin Day. On Wednesday, it was Wear Pink Day. On October 19th, it was the interesting Vampire versus Werewolf Day. And on October 20th, it was our Blue and Gold Spirit Day. Just to know, our most popular day that week was definitely Wednesday, where Wildcats could be swarming the hallways wearing pink. We also had a great moment of triumph in our student hunger drive that occurred last Friday, October 20th, when we reached our 250 goal in the Stop the Bop and replaced the incessant song of Tiptoe Through the Tulips by Tiny Tim with songs people enjoyed. As for our recent sport updates, on October 17th at 7 p.m. in North's Gym, our volleyball team competed in a regional volleyball game versus Central and won 3-1. On October 20th at North, again, our volleyball team competed in their final conference volleyball game versus Pleasant Valley, where we unfortunately finished the season at a loss of 0-3. Our football season was finished off on October 20th at 5:30 for junior varsity and 7 p.m. for varsity, which was against Cedar Rapids Kennedy at Kingston Stadium. One of our freshmen, J.C. Nucci, qualified for the cross-country state meet. But as for this upcoming week at North, this weekend our drama club is presenting their fall show of Almost Maine, which will be on Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. this Friday and Saturday, and on Sunday at 2 p.m., where the tickets range from $8 to $10 and are available online at dnhs.booktix.net. Our next upcoming event hosted by our Student Hunger Drive is the Powder Puff Volleyball Game on Thursday, October 26th, where any student is welcome to join teams up to 3 and have a fun competition. To enter, each student must pay a $3 entry fee to the Hunger Drive. All proceeds will go to our overall Hunger Drive contribution. Then, looking at Wood Intermediate School, which is our primary intermediate feeder school, Wood has started a Hunger Drive to help support North's Hunger Drive. And also, last week, Wood joined North and other schools in the region on October 10th at the Band Spectacular at Brady Street Stadium. The Wood Vikings also performed on October 19th at 7 o'clock p.m. at North High School's auditorium for the Wood Fall Choir Concert. Then, moving on to the elementary level, we look at Harrison Elementary School, which is our primary elementary feeder school. They have started their student hunger drive to help North as well, just like Wood. And last week, they also hosted an event on October 19th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Fun Station, where students paid $7 to jump and play to raise money for the Harrison PTA, who made 25% of the profits. This upcoming week, they will be having a trunk or treat on their blacktop from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. In addition to this, winter sports, including basketball and wrestling, have started. Thus concludes North High School Student Board Report.
Hello, I'm LA. I'm Mid-City's school board representative, and what's been going on is about 2 weeks ago we started our school hunger drive, and students are able to bring in a couple of cans or money to be able to donate it, and we're doing like raffles to where teachers are going to get like pied in the face or taped to the wall. That's just a few of them.
Hi, my name is McKenna Burt, and I am the representative from Davenport West. Sorry. This past week, our publication staff attended the Iowa High School Press Association Conference up in Iowa City, and they learned many things about different sessions, doing all different sorts of things with publications. We had our senior night for football, band, cheer, cross country, and golf. this past Friday, where we honored many, many, many seniors, including myself, with all of our endeavors. And we had to walk and get flowers and all the fun senior night things. Our football season was sadly concluded, but they had a great season, and yeah. Our dance and cheer teams competed this past weekend in Dubuque, starting off their competition seasons. They'll be headed off the next couple weeks, doing competitions to prepare for state. And we are also doing very many Student Hunger Drive events. We have our Powder Puff game for football this Friday, where the juniors are playing the seniors. Go Seniors. And next week we have a volleyball tournament where any student is welcome to come and participate in teams, and even teachers. This week is also Spirit Week, and today we kicked it off with Barbecue Dads versus Soccer Moms. FBLA started its first chapter at West this year and will be attending the state conference this weekend as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, student board members, for those awesome reports. Nee, I will not forget that, and I'll make sure I get it right going forward. Are there any board reports? Director Kleindrum.
I would just like to give our condolences to the family of Jim Riedesel. Jim was a social studies teacher down at Smart for over 30 years. Both Bruce and I had the opportunity to work with him. Great guy, great sense of humor. Just overall great guy.
Director Hayes.
We'd also like to add our condolence for the Tanya Wilkes at Sutler lost her mother since we last met, and we'd like to offer our condolence to her family as well.
Director Beck.
On a lighter note, I think, and probably several of us attended the band spectacular at Brady Street Stadium. The guest band, Lincoln University, was fantastic. And I have to say, I was so impressed by all of our bands, and the junior high bands were probably the most impressive. All of the junior highs played at the same time, and it sounded amazing. And then everyone played at the same time, like 700 kids or 500 kids, and it sounded fantastic. And so I just want to give a shout out to all this faculty and staff who put that together, and all those kids who must have been practicing their hearts out, because it sounded so good. It was really impressive. So we've got great bands here in the district.
Director Barnes, did you have a board report?
Just quickly, yes, I'd like to recognize Chad Ryan and Wendy Shaw, who coached the Davenport Flyers, which of course are the 7th and 8th grade cross-country runners. And want to congratulate the boys who placed second in the state, and the girls who placed 6th in the state. Davenport cross country, I think, has a very bright future. And I guess selfishly, I'll recognize my son, who was the first place winner. He got second overall for the 8th graders.
Any other board reports? The only thing I'll chime in as well. The band spectacular was phenomenal. I was a little deaf. I was standing next to the superintendent, who was louder than all of the kids down on the field. But we have some amazing students in our district, and it was a great job. The band that it came in as well did a phenomenal job. And the announcer too. I wish they'd get that guy to call football games. He was awesome. So, seeing no other board reports, we will move on to communications. Brenda, do we have any? None? No open forum. I don't have to read the thing tonight. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board accept the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Superintendent report.
Thank you, President Goza. I'm very proud to announce an initiative that we're starting. When you think about Davenport Community Schools, when you think about the data that we look at, when you think about the goals that we have, everything is around educational goals, which rightfully so. It's about increasing graduation rates and reading proficiency. Davenport Schools has around 2,300 employees, and half of those employees are educational employees that are driving 100% towards that mission and that goal. But we have a whole nother sector of our organization and our business that are also trying to meet those goals. They're also trying to push those goals. And when you think about an organization that size, 1,100, 1,200 employees, and they don't have an operational, organizational mission, vision, and goals. For example, what does a ticket time look like? What does the hiring process in HR? And so what we have done is we, as leaders of those departments, we've kind of organized ourselves around the creation of a mission and vision for the operational management, the support staff in this district. The entire goal for us is to tear down barriers, to tear down silos, and ultimately improve the outcomes for our students. So what we envision is that we would have an educational plan along with operational plans and goals that are helping us meet those goals. We're kicking this off November 14th in the boardroom with the HR department, IT, operations. Operation makes it a little difficult because there's about 300 of them, so we have to figure out the best way to cascade this information. And what am I missing here? And finance, thank you, Kevin. Can't forget that one. And we're going to get in a room and we're going to begin to talk about what's the mission and vision. Also, right now, we're looking at a software that will allow us to track our ticket times. It'll allow us to gather data. And the whole purpose of this data in systems like ours, it will allow us to interrogate reality and not one another. So when you put the data on the table and you can actually talk about how can we improve our system for outcomes for students, for teachers, getting materials delivered. When you have a mission or a vision that says, nope, the students in our district are getting this today and we're going to make sure that it's delivered on time. We need to rally the troops to make sure that happens. So we're going to embark on that. More to come from that. I'm really proud of our leaders that are going to help move us through that. Really could be a game changer for allowing us to see how can we better use our resources? How can we better improve the educational outcomes for our students? Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Committee reports. Finance Committee.
We met last Thursday, and Susan Gerlach was online with us, so went over much of the material that we saw tonight.
Thank you. Elziak.
I believe we meet in November. Is that correct? Yeah, sorry, I forgot to write it on my calendar. I will do that now.
Thank you. Policy Committee.
We meet next week.
Long Range Facilities Planning Committee.
We met last Friday and arranged a presentation that we'll have this evening and a discussion on the future of Frank L. Smart.
Thank you.
The school, not the person.
Thanks for clarifying. Nothing new to report on legislative advocacy at this time. We will move on to items requiring action. The only item requiring action tonight is subject 11.01, the 2024 course guide. The following motion was made by Beck and seconded by Barnes at the October 9th, 2023 meeting. I move the board approve the 2024 to 2025 high school course guide as presented. Subsequently, Kalan Jerome moved and Poston seconded the board to postpone that motion to the next meeting. The motion to postpone passed unanimously. As a result of those board actions, we have an open motion on the table. Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
So we're allowed, we can discuss the course guide questions that were left open at this point? Okay. Sorry, it's hard to follow where the motions are. I just had one question. We got some feedback on our questions, particularly about speech, that was going to be embedded within the curriculum. And I just wanted to know if that has been done already, if we have models, or if this is a proposal. And my reason for asking that is just that I still have some concerns. Being in a college classroom with students who are coming out of this pandemic, I can tell you communication is not their strong suit. And so I think it is really imperative that we make sure that our students can do this. And so I'm just kind of curious about what the plans are then if speech is not a required class. How are we going to make sure that a student can actually stand up and talk in front of people, right?
Thank you for that question. So typically when a resource is adopted and the field test is completed, then we spend that following summer to go through all of the standards. We go through prioritizing those standards. And once that is done, we would make sure that the speaking and listening standards are prioritized within those ELA resources. As we spoke during our last board meeting, really emphasize that speaking and listening isn't going to happen in just one class, and nor should it be just the responsibility of ELA, that it really needs to start even in preschool all the way through our entire system and across content areas. So when we're looking at speaking and listening, those can be done throughout all of the content. And then we need to be very explicit through those priority standards and our pacing guides as to where that's going to happen. Mm-hmm.
So I guess just to follow up, it sounds like we're going to be asking people to, particularly at the elementary level, to add more, which we already know is a bit of a struggle. And so how are we going to accomplish that without losing something else, I guess is my question. And then the other one is, do we actually have models for how this is working? Because we can say we are going to intentionally build it in, but I'll be honest, I don't have I've seen that people say that and it doesn't happen, right? In all sorts of different environments, not just education. And so is there an actual concrete plan or a model that we're using in order to do this? Mm-hmm. Somebody who's done it successfully.
So there's a couple thoughts on that. There are planning documents that can be used so that when we're creating lesson plans, that speaking and listening is brought right in there. And that is something that has actually been a highlight through all of our visits during our curriculum resources, whether it's math or ELA, that the planning process is so important. And when you're planning, how do we make sure that it's engaging and that for instruction? And then how are we engaging for that speaking and listening as well? So that's one approach that we would make sure we're explicit about. The second piece is that what gets measured gets done. And so when you have a priority standard, that priority standard is assessed in one way or another. And so we would want to be very explicit about that in addition to those planning documents.
But I'm not hearing that we are working from a model where this has been successfully done, I guess, is my question. Do we know of a district that is doing this successfully?
We know of districts that are not teaching speech, that are addressing speaking and listening.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Director Kleindro.
And I understand that the 24-25 course guide with the speech removed only starts next year with next year's ninth graders. So currently 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th still are required to take speech. Is that correct?
Correct. So we've received feedback from counselors, from teachers, from administrators since our last meeting, and gathering all of that information. And historically, when a course guide is adopted and approved by the board, it would start with the incoming class, the incoming ninth grade class. So we're really just using what has been past practice and has worked very well. So we've actually met with counselors and administrators this morning and that went well, knowing that the course guide that is being approved would be approved for the class of 2028, which is the incoming ninth grade course. So speech would remain required for the next 3 years for the class, for the current 9th, 10th, and 11th grade class.
And so we would be able to, in the next couple years, look at, are we really truly getting speech into these new classes? And we have the opportunity to change it and say, whoa, put the brakes on, we're putting speech back in.
Mm-hmm. We'd have the next 3 years to work on that. We also know that speaking and listening, again, are standards that have been in the Iowa Core since day one in 2009 when the Iowa Core was adopted. And it is a critical skill. Complex communication is absolutely what employers are asking for and wanting. And so how are we going to create that learning environment for our students so that they're successful throughout all of their experiences and not just in one course? And so I think that really ties in with all the engagement that has also been highlighted throughout our data review and how important engagement is and being able to collaborate together. So all of that is work that is wrapped together, and it's not in isolation. Mm-hmm.
Director Barnes, did you have any questions?
I do have a quick question. Thank you very much. I remain interested in knowing how we're going to measure speech and speech effectiveness. It seems to me that oftentimes the class or a class is the currency within which we operate. And so I remain curious, interested to know at what point are we going to assess whether or not we're doing better without a speech class when it's embedded in all of these other classes? And how will that be assessed? I mean, you could look at a transcript and say, oh, hey, I took speech, or the student took speech, but we won't have that now. So how will we assess that?
Mm-hmm. You know, there are many models that we can lean into to create that assessment piece to ensure that we are meeting the mark. For example, I'm going to use writing. There are districts that have adopted a common writing rubric, and that writing rubric is all the way through the entire system, and writing is an emphasis. And then you use that rubric to monitor progress that students are making throughout their educational career. The very same thing can happen with speaking and listening. Complex communication.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? Director Poston?
One of the things that was also discussed for a reason for dropping speech as a requirement was that so many students were failing or refused to participate in speech. So one of my concerns is I don't want to get into the mindset that we're dumbing everything down so that in order for kids to more easily reach the graduation requirements. So that's a concern of mine. And then information that was sent to us here in the last few days, they're talking about communication skills and that. And one item I'd like to quote from there is they talked about key skills include critical thinking, problem solving, communication, teamwork, global awareness, social emotional learning, and civic literacy. So again, my concern is not having that speech requirement and talking about being embedded in other classrooms. I'm concerned that there won't be the time to include that in there. There's enough already going on in the classroom. So again, I'd like to see, as been mentioned, that we have some sort of model to follow.
Mhm. So just to address the failing rate, first of all, that to me personally would be the last reason we would want to drop a course. And I wouldn't put that out there as the reason at all, because there are so many factors that go into that failure rate. And I think that part of it is, again, those skills that are being addressed during that class. How, again, do we make sure that students are accessing it throughout their educational experience? When you're talking about, are we adding more to a teacher's plate? I don't see it as adding more. I see us doing things differently. So when we talk about instructional practices and routines that are happening in class, how might we be able to provide an experience for students, even in third grade, to be able to do their social studies, for example, in a collaborative fashion that teaches those speaking and listening skills. I'm thinking about the capstone class. That capstone is exactly where a lot of those skills can be built within that course as well. And those are just two examples. Middle school concept is another example where we have a team that has been working on that middle school concept since last spring and over the summer, and then continued this year on professional development, professional learning. And what does the middle school concept look like? What do instructional practices look like? It is all about engaging authentic learning. And those would be experiences that students would have where, again, we're going to bring in the speaking and listening throughout that experience.
Director Beck.
I think I appreciate what Director Klein-Jerome said about, reminding us that there is a chance to evaluate how we're doing this. I also echo Director Barnes' comments that we need to know what the measurable objectives are before we drastically change things, right? And I guess that brings me to my other concern, kind of along the lines of Director Postian, that we are not doing enough for our college prep students and our high achieving students. And I know we have to serve everybody. Everybody deserves the same opportunity at education and the same a chance to learn the same skills. But one of the ways that we can distinguish ourselves is by making sure that we engage those other students as well. And so some of my concerns relate to things like the AP classes and the fact that, we say we're going to offer them, but then students sign up, but they don't find out until a couple days before classes start that there's not enough students for that class to go, right? Or something like that. And I get it. We can't run classes with 2 students. That's not feasible. That's totally understandable. I'm just wondering if there's a way where we can start incorporating maybe in the course guide this course will not run unless X number of students register, so that students know that there's a chance it might not run, or we offer this course every other year, because in the course guide it says this course will run at this high school, and this high school, and we know that that's not always the case, right? If there's not enough students who are interested or who have registered for it. So I guess I would just ask that we think about that. I realize we're not going to put that in this upcoming course guide, but to think a little bit about that and about in the future about how we're making sure that those students who are on the other end of our academic spectrum and all throughout have those opportunities to take those really challenging courses if they want. And, you know, are prepared, have a backup plan. If the course that they want is not available, what is an appropriate alternative, right? Because that gets at all of the planning that we've been talking about. Somebody's planning to take AP, whatever, and it's not going to run, then they need to know that so they can make alternative situation. And finding out the day before the first day of school is not helpful in that respect.
No, I appreciate those comments, and that is very doable to be able to make some adjustments in the course guide in the future with that statement so that it's clear on registration.
Director Poston.
Well, even though I have a lot of concerns about dropping speech, I'm going to vote in favor of it. After going through the information that was sent to us called Decoding Deeper Learning in the Classroom, that brought out some of the learning that's taken place as far as speech within the classroom. And then also I'm going to depend on the work that you as a staff have put into this. And you as a staff know better than what we do. And but again, I definitely have some concerns.
Any other discussion? Director Barnes, you have anything else?
I do not. Thank you.
The only thing I have, but kind of along the lines of what a few board members have said, how long would it take you all to put together something on how you're going to assess this to make sure it is working? Obviously, I don't expect it tomorrow, but I'm sure in your discussions you've had something, and what are your benchmarks going to be? Because I can either do a board request for it, but I would like that information presented to us at a future board meeting, because I'm not really comfortable with it, but I understand it. But if you can show me your benchmarks on how you're going to address this, and I agree we shouldn't drop something because of grade levels, but if it's a different approach that is going to get the kids more engaged to it and it's going to bring the grades up, I understand that. But I think we need to have something in place to base our decisions on, for you all to present something to us on how you're going to check this and what your benchmarks are going to be. So like I said, I can do a board request, but that's something I'm asking for in the future.
Okay. Yes, we can put that as a priority and start to put a draft together and get teacher feedback on what that would look like.
Okay. My other thing on that, when you're getting feedback, I would like a list of the names of the folks that are actually involved in that, because I think there's a disconnect on information, how it cascades down and comes back up. So when we start holding people to that, I think that's going to help that communication chain, and we can find out where that breakdown is.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other discussion? This is going to be a roll call vote. Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Barnes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome.
Yes.
Director Poston.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. We will. Everybody good to power through? You want to break before the next presentation or discussion? Huh? All right, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll go on to discussion items. All right, and we are back. We are moving on to discussion items. First discussion item is 12.01, Smart Intermediate School Renovation or New Building Project. I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much. We've asked John to put together a presentation. We also have the principal here with us tonight about Smart Middle School. This kind of dovetails right into the financial conversation that we were having earlier, but also at the request of the school board. If we are going to move forward with the projects at Smart, let's take a very close look at, or Sudlow, let's take a very close look at what does Smart look like. In working with our long-range facility master plan, it makes a lot of sense to bring this forward sooner rather than later, because there's some operational efficiencies that go with dovetailing projects together, and it particularly in a labor market, it makes a lot of sense to move the labor from one project to another, but there also might be some efficiencies with materials. And so bringing this forward sooner rather than later is has multiple advantages for the district, both operationally and potentially in a savings capacity. So no pressure, John. Save us some money and make us more operationally efficient. So, John, thanks for being here and appreciate your effort on this.
I wish I could grant all wishes, but so thank you for having me here again. This presentation is actually going to feel very, very familiar to what we looked at when we had a discussion about Sudlow Middle School. So for the benefit of anyone that is watching or listening from home or in the room here that wasn't a part of that conversation, we'll recap a few things, but this is very specific to the Smart Middle School conversation. So through the district-wide master plan, goals were set for projects that were established as what we'll call the phase one projects, which were the initial needs of the district. Of those, Smart Middle School was targeted for an expansion and renovation. So seeing the need for update was an important component of that master plan. Again, the total project budget for all projects was in the $150 million range. The funding we had a discussion of earlier this evening. So initial considerations at Smart. So the addition and renovation was proposed for this building. Like Sudlow, it's a building where we filled up spaces due to other programs and services being provided in the building. Improving the building would allow for sufficient space for the grade levels, but the real big thing here is anything that we do in this building, the goal is to establish a house concept. So the actual goal is to provide 2 houses per each grade level in the building. As we move 6th graders in, that would be 2 houses for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade each. This also gives an opportunity to improve and enhance the vision of the district by creating new and improved environments that will hopefully keep our students within the district, help to attract new families, and aid in attracting and retaining staff who looks to work in the district. So this specifically would be some form of addition renovation. The big impetus to do this started with 6th graders moving back to the middle school buildings. But there were other improvements targeted for Smart Middle School as we worked through that facility study. So if you remember that long facility study document, there was a considerable amount of necessary operations, maintenance, repair, and update items that were identified for this building. One thing that's missing here is collaboration and flexible use areas, as well as increasing sight lines and supervision so that we are able to update and increase the safety and security for the staff and students who live and work in this building. So if we want to just recap what a house model is, the ILDs said it best. We're taking a big building and making it small. So we're taking a large class body and breaking it into a smaller component, which should create smaller learning communities that would improve the relational and social development of the students, enhance their academic engagement, and provide an environment which would improve the student outcomes for the students in that building. Like Sudlow, we do have a small cafeteria. We only have a single gymnasium. When you have a sizable building with one gymnasium, it is hard to keep up with the PE and extracurricular needs of the students. This gives us an opportunity for better integration of technology classes, FCE, and just generally an approach for STEM to introduce those kids into STEM programs before they embark on their high school career. We also have the ability to improve our site safety and logistics. If you've been down to the Smart Campus, there is a lot of traffic and not a lot of place to go there. Because the Monroe building is being removed, it gives us the opportunity to unify the two campuses, the Monroe and the Smart building campuses, which will help for this improvement of space planning and site logistics. Hopefully that will better separate cars, buses, pedestrians, as well as outdoor spaces and where we look to construct any building additions. So when we started this, we had identified a building program. This was based on a targeted master plan program. And by program, that's a listing of all the spaces and functions and features that need to go into the building. That had targeted a net, or I should say a gross area of just shy of 140,000 square feet of need for this building. In addition, there was a substantial amount of cost attributed to the building upgrades. Those are those operation and maintenance repairs that were identified through the study process. I believe at this building, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere in the $10 million range or just under. So that's a good chunk of the budget that was proposed for this. The original goal had been to propose a remodeling for select portions of the building and provide addition to make up the deficit of space that's not available in the current building. That cost was targeted at approximately $51 million, just shy of $52 million. So the first thing that happened was we did a little bit of a deeper dive, working with the principal, and Ben Driscoll's not here, but Ben has been part of this conversation. We dug deeper to find out what is the actual need for this building. The program dropped by about 10,000 square feet, which is not nothing. That's millions of dollars based on that amount of building quantity. And so the amount of addition likely could go down a little bit, but the remodeling still affects a good portion of the building, and it still needs a significant amount of update and repair. That number doesn't change if we look at remodeling the existing building. So with the reduction in the target square footage, the proposed budget cost is in a range of $49 to $51 million. So it's gone down just a little bit. Part of the reason for that gap in pricing is it's still very early, and we're projecting out in time because we're looking at this as a 2024 start of work kind of project. So the question was asked, is it possible to look at this project a completely different way? And like Sudlow, we did a deep dive to understand what it would mean to knock down the whole building and start all over, or retain some small portions of it and provide a more sizable addition. And what we found, similar to that other conversation, was that a complete standalone facility, given the reduction in square footage, would yield a gross cost of approximately $55 to $57 million. If we tried to use the same approach as at Sudlow by retaining the existing gymnasium and integrating that into the new construction, we're talking a range of 52 to 54 million. So it's not significantly different than the original budget that we started with. We were just shy of 52. For just a little over 52, we could look at a very sizable addition against the existing gym for the project. So there are pros and cons. We're not going to read them all off. They are the same as the other conversation that we had recently. This is an older building. There have been investments made to that campus. There's a lower overall cost to stick with an addition and remodeling. However, on the new side, we end up with all new construction. A con in the court of the addition remodeling is not every room gets remodeled or renovated. There's not enough budget. There was not enough budget attributed. So if we were to go back and try to remodel the whole building, that cost would become substantially higher. There are challenges to meeting the requirements of ADA accessibility. There's limitations to the room size and configuration of the building, and we are locked in specifically to the orientation of the building and how it interfaces with the property that's there. With a new construction, we would have more freedom to adjust the room size and configuration to better meet the needs of a house approach. The entire investment would be placed predominantly in all new building construction. It would be accessible, code compliant. We likely would see a shorter overall duration in construction sequencing. And there is an option if you wanted a whole new building, you could likely build it where Monroe once stood as an opportunity. The existing original building, everything except that gymnasium would get demolished. There are always going to be some site logistic issues there. We would have to work with the city to try and do what we can to help clean things up, make sure we get good flow. We're still going to have some logistical challenges, but we think there could be a great improvement there. Understanding some of the questions that came up in our conversation with Sudlow. Operation and maintenance expense. Currently, that building costs $157,000 annually for operation and maintenance. We are assuming after expansion, if you did the addition renovation, it'd cost you about $170,000. If we went with an all-new building, it's more efficient. So you're probably somewhere in the $160,000 range. The opportunity for new construction likely yields a bit of time before you have any significant cost for maintenance and repair, likely 10 to 15 years. The big thing that we talked about, though, $9.5 million is the amount of investment required to deal with deficits in the maintenance and repair of the existing building. So if we went with something that's more new in construction, that $9.5 million gets invested into that new construction. FF&E, fixtures, furnishing, equipment. Some of that would be technology related. Some of it would be desk chairs and other loose furnishings. That's included in that cost. These fees or costs do not include fees for construction management services. We've estimated this based on a general construction approach, which is your competitive bidding environment. And then just as a note, our understanding of the campus is that the original building was constructed in 1917. It had additions in 2357, 63, and 2002. There was a window replacement in 2009 and partial re-roofing in 2004. And that's the best that I could dig out for that building. So I blasted through that very quick. I probably made some stutters and a lot of ums in there. So feel free to ask any questions and we can go back through.
If I could add something on that the entire block itself with the raising of Monroe, and this is relatable, we're getting lots of questions about the memorial on that property for Breasia. The person that has designed it and installed that is actually Mr. Driscoll. And so he's working with a plan to actually gather all of the items that make up that memorial, work with the parents and the architect to find the best place for that memorial to go. We have every intention of preserving the memorial and finding the best home for it after the construction is done. So lots of people are seeing the fencing go up around the Monroe property and the memorial's inside of there. We just want to make everyone aware of that.
And actually, to build on that, part of the demolition of Monroe salvages key pieces like date stones. We didn't think there was one on that building. They found one, so we're salvaging that. We'll use that as a marker on the site to help commemorate where that was. If we go the route of demolishing the original portion of SMART, we'll do the same. We'll save some key pieces and use those as markers or in some tasteful way on the site to help keep a connection to the lineage of what was there.
Director Hayes.
You had mentioned the possibility of saving the gym and building around that. So is the gym relatively recently remodeled, or because I'm wondering what that looks like, older gym? Does the brick match, or how does that work?
So the gym was constructed in '02, and likely there would be a little bit of update for just making sure that fire alarm, fire protection, and mechanical systems are integrated. But the beauty of that is it could set some aesthetic rules for us, such as matching some of the stone and the brick so that the flavor of what we build integrates nicely with what's there.
Okay. Another question, if this goes through, when you order the Sudlow materials, would this also be included for cost savings?
These would probably be separated packages, mostly because the timing, our recommendation would be to put a little bit of space between the Sudlow and SMART. Mostly that's to keep from overburdening the construction market, both from a supply and a labor standpoint. There may be an opportunity to order materials directly, so the district may have an opportunity to purchase some of the materials directly. Whether that's done in concert with SMART or not, it's usually better to keep them separated so there's no confusion with missed shipments or things going to the wrong place.
Could we at least, though, try to negotiate rates at that time and get the supplies later?
We'll do the best we can.
Director Beck.
I think we did get a little bit of feedback on this, but is there sort of a general sense of what the teachers at SMART generally prefer, or and the parents or families, or if we've even gotten any of that feedback?
So there was a survey that went out when we raised this conversation with Sudlow, and there was a good chunk of feedback that was received with respect to this, and a lot of it was a concern that any project at SMART would never happen. And so first and foremost, the board has placed that on the list of projects for phase one, so that is a benefit for students and families and staff, but we have a principal here.
I actually brought it up to my staff at the end of last week because we haven't talked about it a ton yet because we wanted to wait for the board to kind of give some guidance. And so last week I put out a survey so I could get input from all of my staff members, whether they were in favor for renovation. And I gave them your guys' presentation to read through. And unanimously, my staff was all for building a new building. And they really narrowed down to the fact that the community, how much that would mean to that community down in the West End for our students and our families to have a brand new building after the closing of Monroe, and even with Breasia and everything, how that would just mean so much to them, as well as they just felt that everybody deserved it and that the kids needed to see that the district is really supporting SMART and really wants that to continue to be a building down there and also wants it to flourish as well.
Sorry, quick follow-up to that. Thank you for surveying your staff. Did you ask them about like brand new versus like building around the current gym? Or is it more like as long as it's one of the new building plans rather than renovation, that's what they were in favor of?
I didn't get into specifics, but I did provide open comment section so they could provide their input, and they didn't really decipher any difference between adding to the gym component and keeping that piece. They were just adamant that the older part of the building, they just felt is in, unfortunately, more of a disarray. And so they just truly felt that the students and the staff deserved and they needed something new to actually fit the needs of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to help students.
Director Kleindrum.
I would not want to see it go on the Monroe property because you couldn't attach it to that gym. And 2002 is not that old that I think we should be tearing it down. So like Sudlow, I'd like to see that remain and attached so that if you move it across the street, it's worthless because no kid's gonna, well, they probably would, but run across the street to go to the gym.
If the gym is retained, it would be directly connected and on that property. And that is likely your best value of approach.
Director Potts.
Where are we in the process of acquiring? There's still, I think, 2 houses on 5th Street across. We own all the other property except those 2 places. I think it would really enhance the entire project if we could get those 2 properties and then see if the city will let us close 5th and 4th. That would open up a lot. Then you could build either to the north or the south. Closing 4th would then you could, Smart's got the smallest field around. I mean, it's not very big. If you could close 4th, you could, all that Monroe property could be their field.
And that's a great comment. The current thought would be that the north portion of the property that Director Potts is talking about would predominantly house parking, staff parking. The former Monroe site would be the perfect candidate for that improved field with walking track and some opportunity for some additional parking. So the ability to unify those with the streets is a conversation we would have to have with the city to see if it is possible, but it would be a great enhancement if it could happen.
To answer your question, though, I have not looked at purchasing those 2 properties yet.
Do we have the ability for eminent domain? No? I'll bet you have some kids that smart you could send over there.
Director Barnes, do you have any questions?
No, none at this time. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this? Director Postian.
I'd like to, again, thank you for the time you spent with me going through the building. And after going through the building, there's no question in my mind that we need to go the new route with saving the old gym. And I think there's just too much going on in that old building to justify renovation.
Director Beck.
Sorry. As with the Washington Sudlow site, I encourage us to consider making sure we have some sort of playground structure available because I know in, as public institutions, we often serve sort of as a neighborhood park. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. I guess I would ask, the memorial that's currently there for Breasia, is that it's inside the fence? Is there, I can't remember exactly where it is, but is it going to be taken down while the demolition is going, or is it just going to be fenced off separately, or what do we know yet?
It's too close to the property. So what we have to do is take all of the materials used, store them in a different place, and then once the property has been established, bring it back in some way, shape, or form. Mr. Driscoll has knows the family, so he's going to reach out to the family that maybe there's a different spot that they would prefer it to be. Now that the school is gone, so the conversations will be had with the family, but everything will be gathered. So I think there's about a ton of stone, a bench, a tree, and then a memorial that Breasia's mom actually made for her, and all that stuff will be gathered and stored.
We have about 2 weeks before that will be.
And the tree, is that able to be transplanted? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? When would this be coming to us for a vote?
Next regular meeting.
Is there any additional information board members would need before voting on this at the next regular meeting? The only thing I got, take that construction manager crap out of there, man. Only GCs. Don't ever bring me that again. And that's on the record. All right. We'll move on to the next item of discussion. Subject 12.02, discussion of Bray Architects for Williams Intermediate partial replacement and roof restoration. Turn it over to Superintendent.
We had a hailstorm this spring, and while we were out inspecting roofs, Williams was looked at. The membrane on the roof right now is, the glue is let loose on the bottom side of it, so it's starting to pull away. It's due to be replaced, a portion of it anyway, so what we want to do is put a poly apply or a fluid applied membrane on the portion of the roof that's still in good condition, and extend the life of it for about another 20 to 25 years for around a third to 2/3 of the cost of a new roof, and then replace the section that's torn off or loose and put a new section on. We would like to hire Bray Architects to design that project for us. Any questions?
Essentially, this will be redoing the entire roof.
There are sections that were done not very long ago, so it's really close to the whole thing, but that building, after this replacement, will be good to go for the next 20 years.
Okay.
As long as there's no storms.
Very good. You got that disclaimer in there. Any discussion on this? All right. This will be on the next regular meeting. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Just don't throw no CMs on here. All right. We will move on to subject 12.03, Project Lead the Way, Grant for Energy Exploration Modules. I'll turn it over to Superintendent again.
Good evening, Melissa Trimble, the specialist for science, and I am requesting permission to be able to purchase the energy exploration modules from Project Lead the Way. We have a grant to do this purchase. They have decided as Project Lead the Way to sunset 2 of our existing kits that we use as our guaranteed and viable curriculum for science in grade 4, and they have replaced it with a new module. As such, I would like to set up our teachers for success and be able to give them this new module, which will then be used in place of the 2 that we no longer have access to.
Director Klein-Jerome.
So the, excuse me, the grant will cover the whole cost of this?
yes, the grant will cover the whole cost.
The other thing I was surprised is that they're already not supporting. This seems like a very short window, but partly because when I taught elementary science, we had those kits for forever. What guarantee do we have that this is going to be around a while and they're not going to pull another one of, oh, well, we're not supporting it? Is there a lifetime they want to put on it so we have to buy new?
They have taken these 2 kits that they have sunsetted. They were some of their original kits that they put out. And really, they target both the same set of standards. So what they're doing is making it possible for us to combine, instead of 2 modules taking 2 quarters, we'll now be able to do those standards in 1 quarter, which will then open up the window to be able to do more standards with a different module. But Project Lead the Way has been very generous with grants, and so they continue to help fund us as we need to make those improvements based on sunsetting grants or growing our program in the ways that we'd like to.
And what is their timeline to change these? I mean, is it 6 years, 8 years, 10 years? I mean,
Probably 8 to 10 years. They've had these current energy kits, the collisions and conversions ones, for probably 8 to 10 years, and now this one is just brand new this year.
not 10. I was still teaching 10 years. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this? Director Barnes, did you have anything?
I do not. Thank you.
Any additional information board members would need before taking action on this at the next regular board meeting? Seeing none, thank you very much. Knocked it out of the park. All right, we'll move on to subject 12.04, collaborative robotic welder for vocational welding. Turn over to superintendent.
All right, Allie Vandermine, curriculum specialist for CTE. So we received a grant from the Iowa STEM Council for high demand CTE program for $40,000. We just have to match it up to $40,000. And so we would like the authorization to, this is asking for the authorization to spend up to $100,000 on a collaborative welder. I will let you know that since we turned this topic in, it has gone out for bid, and we do have bids back, and it is significantly under that number, which, yay, I love it when it comes in under budget. So the actual numbers are still $40,000 from the grant, and then it would be $35,340 from us for a total of $75,340 for the robotic welder from Hawk Technologies was the winning bid.
Director Beck.
So, I guess if it's only 35,000, is that right, from us, do we still need to authorize it as a board, or is it because we're flowing through
The total
grant money?
cost is still over.
Okay. And this isn't something we have right now,
No,
correct? Yeah.
we're very excited.
But it's something that everybody uses who does welding.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, and Hawk Technologies actually takes several of our apprentices. So our apprentices will actually be working on building the welder that's coming to our school, which is, I think, a really cool connection.
I have one question. So we're discussing this tonight and we won't take action. I believe it's November 13th for our next regular meeting, and you've already gotten bids, got them approved. Are they still going to be good in that amount of time?
I have been told yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were covered. Director Barnes, did you have anything?
I do not. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else or any other additional information? Allie, as always, knocking it out of the park. I think this will be a great addition to our vocational welding. We'll move on to subject 12.05, policies for board second discussion. I'll turn it over to Director Klein Jerome.
This is the second discussion. Are there any questions? If not, it'll come to a vote at the next regular meeting.
Way to really knock it out of the park nice and quick. Move on to administrative reports.
Knock that out of the park.
Yeah. He always does that one.
Where's the peanuts?
Board request. I have one board request. Name of board member Karen Klein Jerome. Date of request 10/23/23. Item requested an agenda item. Description of the request. Would like an update about the middle school plan for next year. Why are you making this request? We delayed moving sixth graders to the junior high middle school. To make sure we roll this out correctly, the board should know what that will look like. When would you like this? March or April 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other board requests? All right, we'll move on to board reflections. We will start with Director Barnes.
Thought that this was a very healthy discussion tonight, particularly about the curriculum guide. I appreciate my fellow board members recognizing that this really is an administrative duty, but still appreciate the discussion and continue to be interested in speech.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Director Potts.
Two things stood out in my mind. One, our education on bonding, which is important because it's that next step down the road for our long-range facility plan. And the second one was our conversation on SMART, because we have to do to SMART what we're doing to Sudlow. You can't not go down that path. I intend to vote for it. Not that I've changed my mind, but I'm going to vote for it.
Thank you, Director Potts. Director Klein Jerome.
I agree that we could not do Sedlow if we are not doing SMART. I also support that. I have heard the finance bonding thing twice now. I'm just amazed at all the steps and things that have to go into it, and I thought that was very informative. I also like the fact that we are looking ahead, the grants and things to get some of these things paid for.
Thank you, Director Klein Jerome. Director Beck.
I also really appreciated the discussion on SMART. I think it's an important discussion to have. And I agree with Director Potts that if we are going to put an investment into Sudlow, then we absolutely need to do the same, because all of our students deserve the best. The other thing that I actually really enjoyed was our student board reports tonight. I really enjoyed hearing from about the feeder schools in particular, and hearing about all the things that are going on, not just sports or not just music, hearing a lot of different things going on. And so I thought those were excellent board reports tonight.
Thank you, Director Beck. Director Poston.
I agree with everything that's been said.
Knock that one out of the park. Director Hayes.
I enjoyed the presentation between Kevin and Suzanne, and also the discussion with SMART. Actually, I enjoyed all the discussion items, but especially SMART.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Superintendent Schneckloff.
I think it's incredibly invigorating to plan the work and then work the plan, and that's kind of the route that we're going to see something beautiful and new driving down 4th Street is going to make an incredible difference.
Thank you, Superintendent Schneckloff. Mine was going to be the student board reports. They were very detailed. I like the fact that they put their feeder schools in. And then also it was very nice of me to talk about the teachers getting their swag and that. So I also do appreciate the conversation we had to SMART. And thank you to the superintendent for bringing up the Memorial de Brieja, because I know that's been a question I've been asked about a lot. And you filled that gap, and hopefully that gets reported on, and anyone who watched the meeting knows that we are addressing that and it's not getting left behind. So With that, Director Potts, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to thank Ken for the pumpkins and gourds, and I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call, or all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries, meeting adjourned.